how are you?
Good.
What's your name and what is your position with Boy With The Ball?
My name is Maria, and I'm the Love Your City director here with Boy With The Ball. I'm also the volunteer coordinator.
So within the community, what all are you involved with?
So I am involved with Love Your City mostly, but then I'm also involved with a little bit of Velocity, the cross-age mentoring program that we do, and also Pipeline, which is the program that we just launched last year. That's like a career development program.
Okay, awesome. And what about Boy With The Ball drew you to join?
So that's here. I'll tell you the story of how I how I started to get involved. But I had just gotten into. I'm from Brazil, and I had just gotten into the country in the beginning of 2017, and then I started going to University of North Georgia in the fall of 2017. And then one day I was walking around campus, not really trying to look for a class or something. And then I saw the sign saying there's a volunteer fair happening. I was like, I might as well check it out. I've always wanted to volunteer somewhere. And then I went into that volunteer fair and I talked to every single organization that was there. But then when I stopped at the Boy With The Ball table, it was different than every other organization. With the other organizations, they were just giving me pamphlets and things like that and saying, come and volunteer with us. But when I stopped there, Anna and Molly, who both work for Boy With The Ball, to this day, they started asking me questions about myself. They were like, so what's your name and what are you studying and what's your dream? What is it that you want to do in your life? And it wasn't until 15 minutes later in that conversation that I learned anything about Boy With The Ball. And so then I realized it clicked for me that their approach is so different. They believe in the power of relationships. They're fighting to know me and to really know me and not to just make me come and volunteer. And that was different. So it drew me to join Boy With The Ball. I still didn't know much going into it about the specifics of the program, but the fact that the organization had such a different relational kind of revolutionary approach to caring for their volunteers, that was what drew me to join and to start volunteering.
What was the first thing that you participated in? Was it walkthroughs or Velocity?
It was walkthroughs. It was one of the first walkthroughs at the Sarahport Apartments down in Norcross.
What was that like for you?
It was awesome. So at that point, like I said, I had just moved into the country, so I didn't speak much English, and I didn't speak any Spanish, and that neighborhood is mostly Spanish-speaking immigrants. But the moment that we drove into the neighborhood, something happened for my heart where I was like, I feel like I'm at home. I haven't been home in 6+ months, 8 months at that point, or 10. But it felt like being at home. Even though I didn't speak the language of most people who were around me, I still felt like I belonged, like I was a part of something. And that was amazing. So
as a young person, what would you say you face, whether that be when you came to America or even now?
As a young person, I faced a lot of things. Before coming here, growing up in Brazil is different, and I wouldn't say that I had a bad childhood. I had my parents were really great, and they sacrificed a lot for me and my brother, and so we always had food on the table. We always had good education, and went to different schools. I did jump from school to school, and so that made me it created something in my heart where I was more isolated than in community. And I think that's what a lot of young people also face here, is the lack of community. And so I think I was constantly looking for friendships, but then starting a friendship and not continuing it, not going deep enough so that my heart would heal, or I wouldn't feel isolated anymore. And I think that trend continued as I came here. School was very important to me, and it still is. And so I focused a lot on those things, on school things, but then I didn't focus as much on the community side of things. And even through college, I was more isolated in choosing community. And what was cool about Boy with a Ball is that it completely changed the way my life set up, but then also my heart, because then I had community, then I had friends, consistent friends who were fighting for me on a daily basis, and then I was able to fight for people the same way that they fought for me. So that's, I think, the main trend that's like a negative thing around my growing up as a young person was choosing isolation over community. A lot of the obstacles now are around like being on your phones or like just choosing to stay at home for whatever reason, video games or whatever. I think for me it was like I would study a lot, but then I wouldn't connect as much. So I think, that was my growing up. There's a lot more things that I could say, but I think I will say that.
Okay, so then what do you see working with all the young people in the community facing?
I see, so the communities where we work they're representative of a lot of the reality in Gwinnett County. They're not representative of the reality of like the United States and all the young people, but in the communities where we work specifically, there are mostly Central American immigrants. So a lot of what the young people are facing are the challenges of being the children of immigrant families. So for instance, at the Sarah Court neighborhoods where we currently work, when we first came in and started knowing the families, we realized that a lot of the very young kids didn't know any English. So they were going into school realizing that they had to get through what school looks like, which is always a challenge for any young person. But then on top of that, they didn't speak the same language as the people around them. So that's a massive challenge. But then, so for the Sarah Court apartments, a lot of what the young people are facing is the language barrier, is creating a situation where they're having to navigate the school system in the US, plus having to learn a whole nother language. So then that creates barriers and learning loss in school, but then it also makes it hard for young people to connect with their friends, to make new friends. So then they just end up making friends with only Spanish speakers, and then that creates an environment of isolation or division and things like that. But then that group of young people, because they don't see a lot of purpose and vision for their lives, because they don't speak the language that a lot of jobs require and things like that as they grow up, they're engaging in activities that aren't aligned with their purpose, they aren't aligned with their dreams, they aren't aligned with what they're made for, but they're actually harmful for them. So then it really creates a cycle where they continue in that, they continue trapped by their circumstances. But what Boy with a Ball does is it breaks that because of relationships, but I can get more into that later. But then on the Elliott side of the Elliott apartments, you see a similar but different situation where instead of being very young kids that don't know English, it's older kids. So it's like late middle school and early high school students who speak no English at all. So then that's even harder because they're not at that phase where they're still learning both languages. They're at the phase where they should have known, like or that's what the school, or like that's what society expects of them, like they should have known English by then. But the truth is that they recently moved to the US, so they can't be expected to do that. So then oftentimes what happens is that they take a very quick ESL class, but then they are thrown into having to take all of these very difficult classes all in English. And so it really discourages them as they're looking in their futures and thinking, who am I going to be, or what am I going to do? It really discourages them because they're like, if I can't even do what's in front of me right now, how can I ever reach my dream? How can I ever do this other thing? So then the fight is really walking with them as friends, not only to help them learn English, but then also to help encourage them that it is possible. Like I got here 7 years ago, and like I said, I knew very little English when I first joined the movement of Love Your City, and then I learned English, and so it's like it's possible. And so walking alongside these young people with similar situations that I've faced as I was like choosing isolation, but then also not knowing the language and having to navigate the school system. It's encouraging to see what can happen and the possibilities of walking alongside them, and showing them what's possible and like vision for their futures and that kind of stuff.
So as you've worked with them in those communities, what kind of transformation have you seen?
At the Sarah Court Apartments, we've worked there for almost 7 years now. So I would say that there's been a lot of wonderful things that have happened. Now, when we first got there, a lot of the young kids, they didn't speak much English. Now all of them, I think, or most of them, speak English. And they're not only speaking English, but they're at the top of their classes and like speaking at graduations and things like that. So these young people grew to be the leaders within their communities because they saw their lives change. Now they're equipped, they know English. Now they're equipped, they have friends, they have a community that's fighting for them. So now they're starting to realize where they're having to look to their peers, to their neighbors, to their friends, to their family, and do the same for them. And they're like, okay, I learned English, so my friend who doesn't know English can also do that. Okay, I've been a part of this literacy camp that's really changed my life and made me love learning. Maybe my friend can also be a part of that. And so they're becoming leaders in those, not just the programs themselves, not just like the tutoring center or our Read Write to Lead literacy camp, but they're also becoming leaders on a daily basis for their neighbors and learning to love their neighbors and learning to impact them while also looking at their own futures with hope, with like the possibility of like what could happen. And so it's, yes. And the possibility of like that they could reach their dreams, and that's encouraging. So that's one of the transformation pieces that happened in that community. But then also you see where their parents are being impacted. It's like what do you call that? Ripple effect. It's like a ripple effect because they see where their kids are looking at their futures with hope. They see where their kids learned English and were able to change their circumstances, and the parents are being like, I guess my life could change too. We went to a parent-teacher conference with one of the girls in the community the other day, because historically that family had thought that they were just not good in school, and so they were about to give up and she was about to drop out. And we went to the school and talked to the teacher and we're like, okay, these are all the things that need to happen in order for this girl to be supported and to learn better. And so the mom watched as friends were fighting for that girl, and the mom watched as the teacher was fighting for that girl. And then over the next few weeks, the girl was improving in school to the point that she got this award of like student of the month kind of thing. And so then the mom turned to us and she was like, my whole life I thought that I was kind of dumb, or like my whole life I thought that I couldn't do it, that I just wasn't good enough, that I wasn't smart enough. But the truth is I maybe I can, because if my daughter's doing it now, maybe if I just had somebody who believed in me back then, I could do it. But the truth is there's people who believe in me now, so maybe I can do it, maybe I can learn. So it starts to shift the whole family and the way that they perceive their own lives. And then the parents start to think about what could their job be now? How could they change their lives? How could they reach their dreams? Or even fight harder for their kids to reach their dreams, or to set up their lives in a way that accomplishes that. So it's changing the parents too, but then it's also changing the lives of the volunteers involved in it. It's easy to think of Love Your City as a movement that impacts the community and the participants of the programs, like the families and the young people, but it really truly impacts the volunteers. My life changed because of Love Your City. Because I was involved in Love Your City, I was able to learn English. I was able to learn some Spanish, not that much, but some Spanish, and then I was able to become a leader that I don't think I would have been otherwise if I hadn't been involved. And in so many ways, my life changed. I met Jesus because of being involved in the work and because of seeing miracles happening over and over again, and seeing the undeniable power that he demonstrated in the neighborhood. So the impact that happens is also in our volunteers, and lives like mine changing, and lives like our least consistent volunteers or our most consistent volunteers changing. So I think that's some of the transformation that has happened. In the Elliots, we see where we're still beginning. We started a month ago at the Elliots, but there's already some seeds like starting to grow into this beautiful thing of like doors are opening more, and families are being more and more open. They're inviting us for dinner. They're asking us, can you spend more time with my kid? Which is like such a big deal if you're a parent, especially a parent from like a Latin American country, to allow somebody to spend more time with your kid, or even to ask for it. It's like a crazy thing, and a crazy amazing thing. So that's just some like of the little pieces or glimpses of what's already happening, the transformation that's already happening in that neighborhood.
So in those communities that you're working in, what do you hope to see for the future of those young people that you're working with?
I think in some ways I am already seeing the hope for it, because of, like I said, a lot of the young people who were participants in learning to grow and developing and learning English back then are now the ones that are teaching English and are now the ones developing other young people. So I think that's part of the hope, is that these young people would turn into young adults who are great leaders, who then turn into adults who are great leaders, and then turn to, older adults who are great leaders, who then have an exponential impact. That's the whole point of the Love Your City movement, is that it would create exponential impact, so that these young people would realize that they can impact not only one young person, but one young person who then impacts another young person, who then impacts another young person. So I think that would be the hope, but then that each of them would reach their dreams, because why not? Like if you're engaging the conversation of their futures and what can happen for their lives, then their dreams are right there, and hopefully we'll be able to fight that exponential impact. It means that we are each able to fight for their dreams to be reached.
And what's one piece of advice that you would give to a young person?
For the older young people, like going high school, going into college, I would say that your community is very important, so choose wisely, like who are your friends, and choose or who you're choosing to be around. But then there is obviously like the cliche of like you can reach your dreams, that kind of stuff, but it really is impossible without people who fight with you in it and who walk with you in it. So I think community is the thing. I would say choose to surround yourself by people who fight for you, and then choose to go for a movement like this, for Love Your City. Like choose to turn and fight for your neighbors, and then you see how your life changes in it. Because that's what happened for me.
That's good. Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks.